You're watching F.U.N Convention TV at the 5th Annual Summer F.U.N Convention in Orlando. We now join Randy Campbell for the Q&A portion of the educational seminar, Talk to a Professional Coin Grader.
Who's got a question? You're first.
There's water, honey.
Are there any other things that you look for in telling the difference between a clean coin and one that is supposed to be uncirculated?
Coin cleaning is probably the most difficult issue for a collector to address. Although counterfeit detection is fast becoming even more important because people are losing more money from that. The first thing you need to understand is that you have to know when a coin is in its original state and examine that. Let me give you an example. I got a chance to go through original bags of dollars when I was a kid. Peace dollars, Morgan dollars, thousands of bags. I knew what each state looked like color-wise. So if I had an 1881 S dollar that somehow had the luster of a 21 Morgan, I knew that luster was not original. So that's the number one thing you have to recognize. The thing about tilting coins and looking at them from different angles, that will help you detect hairlines. There are many forms of cleaning, though, that don't involve wiping or rubbing, that is, dipping it in a solution. The biggest thing on the hobby for the last 25 years has been taking brown or red-brown Lincoln cents and Indian cents and dipping them in acidic solution to turn them full red. The guys who are colorblind have no chance on these coins. They have no chance because they can't tell the difference between brown and red, so therefore they're raw meat. So I would say this: learn the original color of these coins, and you can't learn this off the internet, boys and girls. You have to go to real coin shows. Learn the original color. We all know the original color, in this case, of a 2011 Silver Eagle. If this coin had a much more satiny or much more brilliant appearance, we would say the luster is wrong for that issue. If the luster is wrong for that issue, that coin almost certainly has either been cleaned or exposed to environmental damage. It's not original. So I hope that's an answer to your question. But I will tell you this. A converse example, we had a little old lady come into a coin shop that I worked at in the late 1980s. And she had only bought coins from one seller, and he advertised a display ad in one of the major coin publications. And every silver dollar she had, and she had over 100 of them, were all cleaned. And she thought that's what an original coin looked like. When I showed her ones in the shop, she said, well, that one doesn't look right. I said, ma'am, I'm sorry, your coins don't look right. Ours are original. And I invited her to a coin show in town that weekend. And she came by and looked at the silver dollars that all these dealers had. And she said, you know, you're right. The ones that really are nice are the ones that look like the ones you had in the shop. So she, even though she was elderly and in her 80s, she could tell the difference between an original coin and one that had not been fussed with or had its luster altered. So the number one thing you need to do, let's just say you're buying an 1878 Morgan dollar. Look at a bunch of them that are slabbed up and get a feel for the luster of that date. Then if you see a raw one, and the color in that raw coin just doesn't look the same color-wise as the one that you saw in all the certification slabs. If the color looks different, there's a good chance the reason it's not different is because it's either been cleaned or had its luster altered by dipping or environmental damage. There is no easy answer to the coin cleaning question, however. The coin cleaners are getting better every year.
When somebody says something has been lightly dipped, is that cleaning or is that something
a little bit of light dipping is not cleaning. Okay, let me make that real clear. A little bit of light, wait, let me finish. You asked the question, let me answer. A little bit of light dipping is not considered cleaning if the coin is properly rinsed. So if you dip the coin quickly, take it out, rinse it with squirt or soap, rinse it again, that's okay. That will remove a few dirt particles. However, it does remove the top microscopic level of luster as well when you do dip a coin. A coin that is left in a jar of dip for several hours will look terrible. It will have almost all of its upper level luster removed from the coin. I generally do not recommend dipping any coin no matter what the problem is unless there's absolutely no alternative. And that means a coin that's really turned dark or close to black and you're trying to get some of that corrosive stuff off of the coin. Light dipping, if it's done properly, should not hurt a silver coin. Notice I said silver. I didn't say nickel. I didn't say copper. I didn't say gold. I said silver. So unfortunately, a lot of people have used old stale dip to dip Lincoln cents to turn them to what we call full pink. But again, these guys who are colorblind can't tell the difference, so that's the problem you have. Yes, sir? up because of President Nixon. I lost part of my hearing.
Well, I'll make one thing perfectly clear. I'll speak louder.
Thank you.
Well, I've noticed in the CDN and the CDN certified letters that they give these 4 grading services for standard value, and it seems like they're not showing you the love like they are for PGCS and NGC.
Well, remember, PCGS and NGC were established by dealers, and they have a market of dealer support for all their product. We're more of a collector-oriented group. In the last year, we pulled 13 points ahead of ANAX, and we're now only about 7 points behind PCGS and NGC in the latest numbers. But we did not establish, and chose not to, a list of hundreds and hundreds of dealers who would buy your stuff sight unseen. We do have sight unseen bidders, but we don't have the massive network. ICG was founded in the early 1990s, and by that time, most of today's major dealers had already committed to either PCGS or NGC. So that was part of what I was not one of the founding fathers of ICG. I hired on much later. But that's part of the answer to your situation.
And the other question is, what is your impression of the Secure Plus and CAC and Plus or Start designation of an NGC?
My philosophy is get it right the first time. So as far as the Secure Plus holder, you need to ask that question of the people at PCGS. I only answer for our product, not for any other grading services product. By the way, do any of you have holders, slabs, not from the 4 major services? Any of you? Yeah, as you may know, they're almost impossible to trade right now, and eBay has not approved them. We get coins slabbed in by coin grading services that have an alphabet of numbers, and the return address is like a P.O. box. There's no address, there's no name, there's no phone number, there's nothing. eBay has tried to address this issue by only accepting the 4 major grading services. I'm not saying that the major services, that the number of major services won't change in the future. It may change. There may be 1 less major grading service by this time next year. I don't know if that's true or not. I can't tell you that. But I do know this right now. Only the 4 major services are accepted by eBay, and generally speaking, most numismatists consider the only 4 major services. We have had a plethora, an abundance of counterfeit coins in these, what I call renegade grading slabs. I've seen a lot of Morgan and Peace dollars that are Chinese counterfeits slabbed up by some mom and pop grading service that no one's ever heard of. So I will tell you this, especially if you're a beginning collector, stick with the major 4 services if you're going to buy certified coins, and shy away from those that are not approved right now. Yes, sir?
How does the industry plan to deal with the variance in grading at higher grades of one resubmitting of coins, changing grade, 2 dealers submitting as opposed to a private individual, things like that?
Well, again, I can only speak for ICG. I can't speak for the other 3 services. Honestly speaking, there have been days when I thought a certain coin was VF35, the same coin, and then maybe a few weeks later I thought, you know, this might be a low-end XF40. That's human nature. So you are going to get some grading variance, not only from different graders, but from the same grader sometimes. And any guy who doesn't admit that to you is not being honest with you. But as far as resubmitting and resubmitting again and resubmitting again and again and again, it's not a major issue at ICG. People obviously have a right to their opinion, and if you bought a coin as a Proof 66 among the finest known, and grading service X grades at Proof 64, and you don't like that grade, you have the option of cracking it out and resubmitting it. That will never be able to change. There's no system or method to prevent somebody from cracking a coin out and resubmitting it. It's obviously not illegal, and I just don't really have an answer for that. Again, the best answer, in my opinion, is try to get it right the first time, which is what we try to do at ICG, and this will negate some of the cracking out. As far as dealers and or collectors cracking coins out and resubmitting, I can't think of a real solution to that problem. I think it's in human nature to believe that your coins are maybe a little bit nicer than they came back from the grading service. I understand that. I've been a collector. I've been a dealer. I have invested millions of dollars for doctors, groups, and professionals in this country before I became a grader. I've worked for coin companies. I was an auctioneer. You know, I've been president of coin clubs, president of F.U.N. I've seen it. I don't want to say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And there are certain things in human nature you can't change even if you want to. What you want is something that would exist in an ideal world. However, you and I know that this world is far from ideal, and some of it can't be legislated out either. Yes, sir?
I agree with you that there are four major grading services, but I've noticed that some of the auction houses have different policies as to which slab they accept.
Some of the auction houses have working deals with some of the grading services, so that's the answer to that situation. Some of them prefer one over another. They strike up a business agreement with a grading or slabbing service. Again, that's getting into human nature. I do know this for an absolute fact, though, that the four major services all trade on eBay, and sometimes a coin graded by one company will bring more than another, or vice versa. It's the same on this Bourse floor. A guy was looking for 5 common date dollars to take back to his home, which is out of state. It's up in Georgia. And he said, I wasn't paying any attention at all to the grading service. I just want to get 5 nice common date dollars. And I noticed that he bought 2 of the 5 were ICG product. 1 was NGC and 2 were PCGS. But he said, I didn't really care who graded them. I just wanted really nice coins for the money. And I think as a general rule, I think all 3 services are doing a whale of a job. I remember what it was like back in the 70s. If you walked into a coin show, a major coin show in 1970, we'll say, and there's a few of us here who were at shows in 1970, at least 90% of the coins in that show were overpriced relative to their true grade. The number might have been closer to 98 or 99%, and in fact, collectors and dealers who could go around and scoop out these few underpriced or undergraded or misgraded coins were the ones that were making money, bringing them back to their table, and hoping they could set it out of their showcase and sell it to a really knowledgeable collector or a knowledgeable dealer who knew that this really was, we'll say, an MS-63 1901 Morgan dollar, a very rare date in 63 and above. Don't know if that totally answers your question, but again, we're kind of getting back here to human nature a little bit. But I do think the 3 services have put an end to buying coins as XF, polishing them up and selling them out of a newspaper or out of some other media sales device as gem unk. A clear majority of the coins the public brought in 1980 when gold and silver went crazy to local coin shops in Palm Beach County, where I was at the time, a clear majority of the so-called choice and gem unk coins were not even new. A clear majority of them were circulated coins that have been cleaned, fussed, altered, or were just flat out counterfeit. The impact the grading services have had on this kind of outlaw behavior is hard to tell you, but I will tell you that they have greatly diminished it. At one time, over 90% of the $3 gold pieces we got at Annex were counterfeit. We kept records. In the early 80s, about 97% of the 3s that came into Annex were not genuine. By the time we left Colorado Springs and moved to Ohio, the percentage of counterfeits was down below 30%. And the grading services are responsible for that. So the improvement about what you're buying at coin shows in terms of accurate grading and authenticity is unbelievable compared to where it was in the 60s and the 70s. A lot of collectors, I dare say most collectors, would not buy a gold coin in the 1960s because they were afraid it was counterfeit. And you know what? Their fears were justified. A high percentage of the gold coins for sale at coin shows before slabbing were in fact counterfeit. Another huge percentage of them were cleaned, fussed with, or altered dates, added mint marks. The coin chicanery out there in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s was much higher than it is today. I know that scares a lot of you because there's a lot of it out there right now. So imagining that it was like triple what it is now is pretty scary, but that's the truth. And the coin grading services have had a major impact on that issue. And now, reputable people are investing in coins. We had 4 stockbrokers who were members of the West Palm Coin Club when I was president in the 70s and 80s. And one of them would occasionally give a talk, and his theme would be, it's nice to collect coins, they're nice, they're shiny, they're pretty, but the only real investments are stocks, bonds, and real estate. Okay, well, how are your stocks done for you the last 5 or 10 years? How's your real estate doing? How the bond market been in the last 5 or 10 years? I absolutely have always considered Numismatics to be a legitimate investment media. But until we got certification in slabbing, I think the critics had an absolutely good point. If you buy 100 shares of GM from a well-known stockbroker, you're going to get 100 shares of GM. You're not going to get a counterfeit stock certificate. You're not going to, you know. On the other hand, if you buy a gem-on $20 gold piece, we don't even know if it's going to be real. So the criticism from the stockbroker on those issues was absolutely valid. It is now less of an issue. The coin hobby has actually rectified what I consider to be its number one shortcoming, and that is lack of ethics. Yes, sir?
Another problem that's been talked about lately is the problem of doctoring.
Mm-hmm.
And what do y'all do to detect and when you rate your coins, I know one service has this way they can prove they can detect that it's been altered or doctored or anything like that. And supposedly in the media, some of these PNG dealers got in trouble selling doctored coins.
Mm-hmm.
What do y'all do to detect the doctored coins?
They're coming up with devices with snippers and all sorts of mechanical devices. These are the same mechanical devices that I remind you could not grade coins. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Do any of you remember the old computer graders back in the 80s? You know how many of them are online now? If you said 0, you're right. I worked for Annex when we were owned by Amos Press. They lost over $10 million on the computer grading project. An acquaintance of mine who has worked for PCGS estimates they spent between 25 and 50 million on a computer grader. Before I went into coins full-time, I was a chief CAT scan tech at a hospital. I've worked with computers at a pretty high level for a number of years. Believe me, we do not now have the technology to grade coins with a computer. And anybody who says we do is not a coin collector. They're not. You can't do it accurately. What do I think of some of these other devices? Anything that can help detect if a coin is altered, I'm in favor of. The number one thing we use, though, at ICG is our 40 to 50 years experience. It's very good lighting and knowing what to expect from a certain date and from a certain issue. For U.S. coins, that's pretty easy, if you've been in it 50 years and had your eyes open. For world coins, and I don't consider myself having tremendous experience, say, with some of the Indian princely states or from some of the Arab states, some of the Islamic countries, I still know their minting methodologies, and I know what luster to expect if the coin is original, and if it's not, I should be able to spot it pretty clearly. So, but any new breakthrough, any new device that will help improve our performance, I'm all in favor of. As to exactly how these specific items are going to work in the future, all I can tell you is time will tell. Some of them may work out great. Some of them may be colossal flops like the computer grader. Can't tell. Yes, sir?
So can you comment on differences of lighting between, say, fluorescent or incandescent bulb or halogen?
I prefer incandescent bulbs. I don't like halogen. I've used it. Fluorescent is hit or miss. I prefer incandescent bulbs. Most professional graders, the lamps they have either a 75 or 100 watt incandescent bulb, and that's what I recommend to you guys. Yes, sir?
With the counterfeiting of the slabs now,
Right.
how do you be sure that you're still getting a real coin if they're counterfeiting?
Well, that's a very good question. And PCGS has, and NGC also, some online things you can do to send them the number of the coin, the certificate number, and they'll tell you what the coin is. Unfortunately, the sharks in China have already caught on to this, and they will take a counterfeit coin and put it in a slab with the same number as the real coin, sell the real coin. In fact, sometimes they send it back to the original grading service and get it in another holder, put a fake coin in a fake holder with the same number of the coin that they cracked out and shipped in to be graded. Now, we have ways of checking this. Obviously, for security reasons, I'm not going to divulge how we do it, but we do have ways of doing this. I will tell you this. Have you read anything in any of the numismatic media about quantities of counterfeit ICG slabs? Have you? No. Is anybody in this room? No, I haven't either. So whatever we're doing, we're going to keep doing it. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to change and alter and update our slab. We're doing it all the time. The owner is always in contact with what I call science geeks, some of these guys who are really smart boys, and they say, well, let's try this, let's try that, let's do this, let's do that. I generally am quite willing to share with you any insights I have on counterfeit detection and grading, but when it comes to what we do for security, that has to remain in the black ops area, unfortunately. Yes, sir?
You say there are four authorities that advertise on eBay, and eBay guarantees, has a guarantee that everything is sold, they will guarantee it.
Okay.
You cannot reach eBay to discuss the matter with them. What do you do about that?
Well, this kind of backs up what I was saying earlier in my presentation. Do business with the big four or just don't do business. You know, you do have the option of not buying a coin. There are very few coins out there that collectors collect. That this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You'll never have another chance to buy a 1912D Liberty nickel again. So you do have the option of not buying the coin. My advice to you is don't buy the coin. If you're not convinced that coin is backed by a believable guarantee. I mean, anybody can say they'll guarantee their coins. Just like any company on TV can say, if you don't like this product, we'll give you your money back. But a lot of them don't. So I'm going to tell you, if you're not comfortable with the transaction, the way it's set up, just turn the other way. There are other options for you and other ways you can spend your money. And that's what I tell you to do. I'll take about 2 more questions, and then I have to allegedly earn a living. Yes, sir?
How about a stacking issue with the coins, and how does it affect?
Okay, ours has grooves, so you can stack up ICG slabs without damaging the coin above or below. I think that's one of the breakthroughs that we have. One of the companies, and I'm not going to name them, has a terrible problem with scratched coins. So I do think that stacking is a legitimate issue. We've addressed that issue years ago at ICG, and it seems to work pretty well. I will tell you guys and ladies out there, though, try not to put too many gummed labels. Try not to put too much writing on your slabs. They will, over a period of time, some of them may get a little hazy or a little scratchy. We had a bad shipment once from a supplier in Colorado, and there were several $100,000 of the slabs involved here, and my boss was not a happy camper. And so he got a handful of these slabs, got on the next plane to Denver, and how can I say this politely? He persuaded them to replace the slabs. I'll just leave it at that. I believe all the slab companies have an obligation to turn out a product that's absolutely as good as they possibly can, not as cheap as they can, not with the cheapest labor they can possibly get in Mexico or China. They need to turn out a good product. Some of the people who run these slabbing companies forget that you're our customers. You know, as far as I'm concerned, you're the boss. I'm not the boss. Mark Yappy's not the boss. The boss is our customer. That's why we come to the coin shows and give these free verbal opinions. I get paid the same whether I work 20 hours a week or 100 hours a week. And my wife knows I work closer to 100 than I do to 20. I just worked 47 consecutive days. I did 6 shows and 5 weekends. And the week before that run, I graded coins all week at ICG and the week after. I do this because I love what I'm doing. And how many of you guys are in the service, active duty? Okay. I tell some of these young kids I work with, I had a job where I got paid $95 a month, and, you know, people could take pot shots at me. Every job I've had since then has paid me more money, and so far no one's been shooting at me. So those of us from the Vietnam era, I think, who survived and are still members of society, productive members of society, have a lot to be thankful for. So when they tell me, you know, when my boss says, Randy, I know you've worked like 30 straight days, but I really need you to do this show. I told him, if you hire me, I will work for you 8 days a week, 25 hours a day, and he took me seriously. So I have no qualms about what I do, and I think anyone who can't meet the obligation doesn't deserve to sit where I sit. I have a very serious job. Before that, I worked as a CAT scan tech, an extremely serious job. Before that, I worked on war casualties from the Vietnam War, a very serious job. I take my jobs very seriously. I don't watch the clock. I don't even know what the hell time it is. People have to come into the grading room and say, hey, Grandpa, it's 7:30. It's time to go home. Oh, 7:30? Oh, geez, you know. So, but I only know one way to work, and that's to work hard. My father was a gunnery sergeant in World War II. Did not have a good experience. My mother was from northern Ontario, Hudson's Bay. They adopted me out of an orphanage and brought me to America, and the rest has been history. All they knew how to do was to work hard. Come by table 104. We'd love to see you. Thank you very much.
Join F.U.N for more free educational seminars at the 57th Annual F.U.N Convention, January 5th through the 8th, 2012, at the Orange County Convention Center. Visit F.U.N Forums for F.U.N show updates, videos, articles, and more. F.U.N Forums. It just makes sense. F.U.N Facts Fast. You've been watching F.U.N Convention TV.